What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 62 of Nintendo Noise, Flipscreen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Chuy Plays.
Good bite, good bite.
And Miss Sierra plus Ultra. You're supposed to say gabagool. You're just eating a burrito? What is this? Oh my God, you all have sandwiches! God damn it! That's it. I quit. I'm done. I'm fucking done. Whoa. You goddamn terrorist, Steve. How could you do this?
Wait, Steve, yours looks like a Pop-Tart. I'm like bugging out so bad.
It's like a foldy. It's like one piece.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I expect this shit
P's and J's.
from Steve. I expect this shit from Chuy, but Sierra, you too? Et tu, Brute?
The sandwich club.
I just want to eat a sandwich.
All right. Okay. You know what? Fine, everybody. Welcome to Sandwich Noise. This is the podcast where I try to get us to talk about Nintendo, and every week we talk about sandwiches instead, apparently. This week on the show, we were going to talk about Bayonetta 3, but I think instead, let's just talk about subs. You know, what's your favorite sub, everybody?
Italian.
It's the only good answer. There you go. Done. Moving on. Back to the show. We got through the sandwich talk, everybody. We did it. There we go. No, we don't ever need to do it again. It's done.
There's one more sub.
What do you got?
Everybody who subs to Flipscreen Games.
Oh, incredible, Chuy, incredible. Speaking of which, I did want to just take the opportunity to say a great big thank you to everybody who has come and become a subscriber in the last month. We have officially hit, as of this morning, 500 subscribers, meaning we now have access to the community tab. We are very stoked about this. This was our goal for the end of the year, and here we are in October hitting it. So thank you so much to all the new blood. Thank you so much to everybody who's been here since the beginning. And, hey, we got a lot more for you. So let's keep rocking and rolling. So like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the Bayonetta 3 drama that dropped this week because, oh boy, it is like the only thing anyone can talk about in Nintendo land. Plus, we are going to talk a little bit about Chuy's impressions of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope because he was able to go and review the game over at twinfinite.net. We are very, very stoked for our boy, so we're going to talk all about that and about the game itself. So, big show this week, but before we get into all that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of October. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support. If you want to go and become a Patreon producer, if you want to go and find the rest of our content all over the web, if you want to write into the show, you can find links to all those things at flipscreen.games. That's our website. Go and click some links, all right? However you choose to get involved, we're happy to have you. Thanks for tuning in. And I feel like there was another thing that I plugged on the other show that I am forgetting. Steve, you got it for me? What's up? What was it?
It was the Sandwich Club over on Discord. We've
that
got
was
a whole
not
dedicated
it!
channel now.
God damn it!
Specifically talking about sandwiches. So if you missed Sandwich Talks this week,
I throw this guy one time. The one time! All right, you know what? Forget it. Because you know what I've learned is I can't take the bait, right? It's juicy, delicious bait. You just dropped it on my lap. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to walk away, okay? And you know what, Steve? Now I can't promote whatever it was. So I hope it wasn't important because I don't remember. So let's jump into the start screen. Chuy.
I remember what it was. Do you want to know what it was?
Yeah,
It
fine.
was the game club with all of us.
Thank you.
Playing Persona 5.
Son of a bitch. All right, so we're launching a new show in November. We're doing a game club, and we're going to play Persona 5 Royal, the four of us, as well as Patreon producer Mr. Zaid Ida, the #1 Persona fan on the internet. We are going to be playing the game once a month. We'll do a special episode where we chat about what we've done in the past month. Essentially, I think the goal will be to hit a palace every episode, and we'll chat about it there. So, of course, the game drops this week. Depending on when you're listening to this, it may already be out. So go pick it up, whether you get it on Switch, whether you get it on Xbox, whether you get it on Steam, or I guess if you get it on PlayStation too, that's fine. Go pick it up and play along. Keep up with us. If you've never played the game, if you're looking for a reason to play it again, no better time than now. Hope you'll come and join us. Okay. Steve's drinking. I'm going to cut to the next segment. Okay, so Chuy, you got to play Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And I have to ask you the question that you posed. Does it spark joy, Chuy?
I love it. Yeah, I think so. I think it's like if you enjoyed the last Sparks of Hope, not and the last Mario Rabbids, I should say. If you enjoyed that one, this one's even better, I'd say, from
Okay.
a gameplay standpoint. Like they built out like every part of the game and just made it better in basically every way. So I think if you liked that last one, check it out. And if you didn't check out the last one, like stop waiting. It's probably on sale right now for like 20
Buy
bucks
that
for the
game for a
gold
nickel.
version. Yeah, you could buy it really cheap and it's pretty worth it. You both of them are pretty packed with stuff, but like this one especially is just like packed to the brim with stuff. There's like not just because the first one, you kind of go through a world and then you go through the world again just to do like a couple extra things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
100% it. This one, it's like you show up on a planet and there's just like quest after quest after quest. Some of them are for the story, some of them are side quests. All of them are a lot better than the original game's quests because the puzzles are actually kind of puzzling at points. There was one in particular like near the end where I was just like, I honestly, what do I do? How am I supposed to look it up if nobody's done it yet? And so I had to just figure it out.
What kind of puzzles
But
are they? Are they like environmental puzzles, or do
yeah,
you have to use skills that you've acquired over the course of the game?
it's a mix of both. Like, basically, when you land on a planet, there's this stuff called the dark mess with an M, like M&Ms. The dark mess is like blocking all of your usual paths that you would take to get to whatever goal you're trying to get to. And the objective is to get to the mission where you can defeat the dark mess and clear the planet, right? And so there's a bunch of different ways through it. Like some of them will have these like sliding block puzzles where you have to find how to get a block to a certain location so it'll stay on the switch and let you through the door, right? And then there's others that are just like weird object things where you find them, place them in certain spots to unlock things, or find them and then turn them to solve another puzzle. So there's a good mix of things. They're not too difficult, but they definitely make you think a lot more than the first game, which I think was like pretty real. It was really straightforward with the first game. A lot of those.
The puzzles were kind of pointless in that game. I
Yeah.
felt they were just there as like an obstacle just to get you to the next battle, essentially.
I got to be
Yeah, and
honest,
this
until
one,
Chewy brought it up, I kind of forgot that game had puzzles.
Yeah, me
yeah,
too.
You know?
they weren't good. Yeah, this one they're greatly improved. And then even like as you go through, like you'll run into a bunch of side quests and stuff where you're just like, "Oh, well, I could just fight this thing and clear this little extra spot too while I'm here, you know?" So, I think it all just kind of like leads you into doing more and more, and it all really benefits like the battle system in this game. And I'd say that's like
Mm.
the biggest improvement that they've made because that was already like really solid in the first one. In this one, they've done things that I'm just like, oh, this is like actually cool. The skill trees are kind of awesome. You get some pretty cool things that you can unlock and do.
And
And then
I'll
on
be
top
honest,
of that,
I was like, when you told me there was a skill tree when we at the end of recording the last episode, I was like, I don't know about skill tree in Mario
yeah.
Rabbids, but it sounds like it's implemented in a meaningful way, especially in tandem with the sparks.
Yeah. Yeah, because basically, like, you level up and you don't really get like any stat boosts from those. What happens is like you'll get a skill point that you can spend on that tree, and that is what like makes your characters more powerful as you go on. So, the best thing about it, because usually the thing with skill trees is like, what if I chose the wrong skill to upgrade, right? This one, it doesn't matter. Like you can freely just take back anything and change your skill trees completely at
That's
any
good.
point. Like
Yeah, because
no,
I
yeah,
often
there's
find in games like you'll get, I don't know, 3 hours into the game and you'll realize that your play style is nothing like what you thought it was going to be at the beginning because you don't know what the game is,
hmm
and you want to go back and restart everything. And I imagine as you unlock new people, you probably want to change the skills that those people get as well.
Yeah, yeah, and they all have like unique things for theirs. The technique skill tree is the most unique out of all of them. That one's specific to like the character's unique power, and so upgrading that one has obvious things that are just going to be really different if you choose to do that. But I like the characters that can dash a lot through people, so I like getting up close and personal. So I Mario Rabbit. The Rabid Mario is one that like creates little explosions as he runs through everybody, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna use him. I'm gonna use the new Edge character. She's got like 4 dashes or something, and each one kind of like pushes you a little further, so you can cheese the movement system a little bit too. Um, and then I guess I should mention the movement system because that's like the big thing that's changed to it too. The first game, the movement I think was weird. Like you kind of had a certain amount. I forget how it worked. It was like a certain amount of actions you can make in a
It
single
was
run,
basically
right?
like XCOM, and you moved that little like Roomba around, and
Hmm.
he would like you would have a certain number of spaces. It worked pretty much exactly like how an XCOM game would work, and it was on a set grid. And
Hmm.
you could move, you would do like an action, you might have like one or two actions left, so if you had like multiple actions you could hit multiple enemies and then like hide behind a rock or something.
Hmm. So yeah, the difference with this one is you have basically like a highlighted circle, and that's your range of movement, and you can move freely within that circle at any point. And when you would use your main weapon, not like a spark, not like a technique. Not it was only the main weapon, but as soon as you use the main weapon, you can no longer run around and everything. And the fun thing about the movement too is like you could extend it by jumping, team jumping with a character. So you'd a character would launch you up, you'd be able to float for a while in another direction, and then you'd get a slightly smaller circle where you could move. And I would always cheese it where I'd like push somebody to the just the end of somebody else's movement so then they could get an additional boost
Okay.
as well. So
Mm.
so yeah, there's like cool ways. And then there's also like these jump pads and rabid pipes that you could go through, and those were completely free to use, and you could really cheese those for for movement too. So I don't know, it was really cool to have like a lot more freedom as far as like how you maneuvered your characters through. And I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with it, just testing it out and seeing all the weird stuff that you could get up to.
Yeah, that's really cool, and it seems like each of the worlds are pretty unique in what they offer.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's 5 worlds total, and all of them are just totally different from each other.
And you
They're
can see how
all.
they could easily add DLC to that, just to add more
Oh yeah.
planets, I guess.
As soon as I was like, I don't know, I finished it and I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely going to be more planets to go to in this. Some residual effects of whatever battle you just went through, right? So yeah, there's definitely an easy way to add things and characters too. Um, there's 9 total in the party, and yeah, at any given time you're only using like 3, sometimes 4, depending on the mission, but at the final boss is just wild. I recommend learning how to use every character because
And
it will come in handy.
I know you said that in your review that you can finally boot Mario out your party as well, which because he had to
Yeah.
stick around right in the first game.
That's huge because I felt like the first game I was like, man, there's like different strategies that you can implement, but I feel like if you don't take into account what Mario does, like what's the point of some of them? You know, like if you're really going to maximize your effectiveness in that game, you really have to depend on Mario's abilities and work around that. And this one,
Hmm.
it's just like, no, you could run no Mario at all and just do a bunch of really different things. And I'm actually excited to see what people come up with because
Full Rabid
between
Squad.
yeah, between the parties, the sparks, and like the different techniques that everybody has and the skill trees that they have, I'm just like there are endless combinations for what you could do in this game. It's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. I'm excited for people to check it out if they do. would say like both of these games are worth getting at the full price, but like why bother when we know it's going to go on sale? So you can wait for a sale if that's what you prefer, but you wouldn't be upset if you spent your money on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the fact that you can buy the original like for like $5-10 sometimes, I definitely think it was well worth it when it came out at launch, and it sounds like this one's a pretty good improvement. So
Yeah, and there's a lot. Like I can still go back and do like tons of missions. I the cool thing I forgot to mention is like all the story quests are level scaled, so it doesn't matter if you like under level or over level. Like you could just push the story along, and everything will be set to your level, and like no matter what.
That's really
So
good.
yeah, it's so nice because I was like the first world, I just wanted to take it all in, do as much as possible. I almost 100%ed it. I think there was one thing that I had to actually like move the story along to get to, so I haven't gone back to do that little mission yet. But after I was like, oh man, I got to finish this so I can actually do the review and everything. I was like, all right, I'll just push through the story, and I was very happy to find that like I was never under leveled, I was never over leveled. It was all just like set to my level, and I was like, oh cool, I'm having a good time. Like this is still challenging, and I don't feel like I need a grind to like be able to beat anything, you know?
very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It sounds like it's going to hit the mark. So yeah, everybody definitely head over to twinfinite.net. We'll have a link down below if you want to check out Chuy's full review. Definitely go read it for all his deep thoughts, and make sure you give him a click, because we all know that matters. So yeah, go show some love on that one. And if you guys are planning on picking the game up at launch, definitely let us know, because I want to hear some more opinions. I don't think I'll end up getting it day one, just because I've got a couple other things taking up some time right now, but
Isn't it? It's like out the day before your wedding. I don't think you're going to be playing it anytime soon. No.
No
I'm
time.
bringing
No time.
Persona to play on the
There's no
plane, so
Yeah.
so I don't know that I'll have time for it right now, but
Yeah.
definitely one I'm going to get to at some point. Was a big fan of the original. All right, so let's jump into the main event, everybody. It's a drama bomb. We got a drama bomb. We haven't done a drama-filled episode in a while. Bayonetta 3 is the game on everybody's lips this week, and it's not for the reasons that I'm sure Platinum is hoping. Hellena Taylor is the original voice actress for Bayonetta. She voiced the character in English language versions in both 1 and 2. Of course, there was the news not too long ago that Jennifer Hale, a truly prolific voice actress, would be taking up the role in the third game, and Helena took to Twitter to put out a couple of videos in which she kind of explained why she wasn't going to be involved in the project anymore, as well as calling for a boycott of the game. So in her video, she initially claimed that she was offered just $4,000 to play the role of Bayonetta in the third game. Initially less, that was actually a counteroffer. She claimed to directly email Bayonetta 1's director, Hideki Kamiya, and kind of basically made a plea of like, look, like I really want to do this and I love this character and everything, but I, want to be paid a fair wage. To which she said she got a reply, and then that was where she got the counteroffer, and that the fans loved her, and of course they wanted her back, and blah blah blah. But this was the offer. Since then, Platinum lied, right, and claimed that they weren't able to make it work with Helena's schedule, and that was the reason that she would not be involved in the project. And, of course, she said that was not true, and that it was that negotiations broke down. And she made a request for everybody to boycott the game, and specifically called out the quote-unquote new girl, Jennifer Hale, who is not Bayonetta, and she said, this is a direct quote from Helena, I'm Bayonetta, and she has no right to say she is or sign merchandise as her. And she actually gave an example of another performance. I don't remember it offhand, but another performance where she had emulated another actor's voice, and that's not the same thing, right? Like, to develop a character's voice is different than to emulate somebody else's, which was the point she was making there. So after this initially pops off. It goes viral, gets a ton of attention. It's getting picked up by a bunch of outlets. We had multiple other voice actors coming to her defense and saying that this was, a really, really small amount of money for somebody in a lead role. We had some comments from Sean Chiplock, who was asked what he was paid for his role in Breath of the Wild and the spinoff. He played a number of characters in the game. And he said he was paid approximately $2,000 to $3,000 overall because it was based on the total number of hours in the studio, which was higher because of voicing 3 characters in a single game. I made more voicing Spade and and Dale in Freedom Planet 1 because that generously gave me sales royalties. He clarified saying that he meant that cost was per game, not the total across both. And then also clarified at one point to somebody who asked that basically no video games provide royalties unless the client specifically decides to offer it. There's no precedent for receiving royalties, which will be important later. So at that point, once this has kind of gotten some traction, we heard from Hideki Kamiya, who came to Twitter and called her allegations, quote unquote, sad and deplorable. His account was later restricted by Twitter, and then he ended up deleting his Twitter after getting a ton of heat for how he was perceived as handling the situation. Jennifer Hale, unfortunately, received a lot of abuse and negativity on Twitter about this. She later put out a statement that she's not able to comment because of an NDA, but suggested that people should not boycott the game and offered a little context as to her position. So I will read her statement here. With regard to Bayonetta 3, as a longtime member of the voice acting community, I support every actor's right to be paid well and have advocated consistently for this for years. Anyone who knows me or who has followed my career will know that I have great respect for my peers and that I am an advocate for all members of the community. I am under an NDA and I'm not at liberty to speak regarding this situation. My reputation speaks for itself. I sincerely ask that everyone keep in mind that this game has been created by an entire team of hardworking, dedicated people, and I hope everyone will keep an open mind about what they've created. Finally, I hope that everyone involved may resolve their differences in an amicable and respectful way. With love and respect to you all, Jennifer Hale. So, then we had a major update.
I think it's probably worth pausing and
go for it.
What our initial reactions were at that point.
Sure.
As
Yeah.
well,
Good point.
I saw this on Saturday morning when she posted it in the UK, and I was shocked. My jaw actually dropped, and I think I gasped when she said $4,000. I was just I just couldn't believe it. It was mind blowing to me that the lead actress in a video game would get paid so little.
In the third
Especially
entry in a franchise, no less,
and
right?
for a
One that's
performance
successful
so
and
iconic.
established.
Yeah. And as she said in her video, this is a franchise that's made $450 million just in sales from the video games alone, not including merchandise. They've made a lot more from that, I would imagine. So it's not an unsuccessful game. So I think to ask for more than $4,000, even if that is per session, because there is some context to it. Jason Steele, who runs the YouTube channel Film Cow, who's familiar with the Screen Actors Guild, said in his Discord, I think there is some miscommunication going on regarding the amount she was offered. She says she was offered a $4,000 flat rate buyout. Buyout's an industry term for a type of contract rate where there's no residuals. Base buyout rate for Screen Actors Guild is $825.50 per session. So I imagine she's saying she was offered $4,000 session rate, which is extremely low for a lead role in a video game with a likely budget of over $100 million, but not the $4,000 total that's being reported by the press. So I wonder if there was some miscommunication at that point and it kind of ran away from her. But then some of the response she's given to Bloomberg later kind of leads me to think otherwise. I'm not sure. What did you all think of it when you saw it?
I was pretty shocked. And then on the other hand, I'm like, that's the games industry for you. I don't know. How often do we hear stories of abuse and neglect for those who aren't C-level execs? Yeah, it's disappointing. It was disappointing to read her tweet. And obviously, I was, hoping to hear more details about this situation, especially since obviously someone else took the role. So it's like, what happened next?
Hmm. Yeah, for me, it was like I I like following voice actors and voice acting in general, be it just as a fan of like animation and stuff. And like a lot of this was a lot of dots were connecting for me where I've heard the same type of like low pay stuff is common in like Japan for anime and that sort of thing. And uh I also know, like, voice actors here, they're paid for every like three characters that they voice. And then once you add an additional character, like your payment goes up for that. So I'm like, there's a little bit of knowledge there of like, oh, here's a bit about how voice actors pay works. But yeah, seeing that number initially, I was just like, What? That is definitely not enough. I don't know if it's like accurate to like how we're interpreting that number,
Yeah, and we'll talk
but
more
at
about
the
that in
same
a
time,
minute.
I'm like, this isn't something that's like uncommon in voice acting, especially out of Japan too. Like I've heard the same issues with like Pokemon Company and how much they pay their voice actors for the anime and stuff, especially in Japan and things like that. And I'm like, I 100% understand why we don't see voice acting in Pokemon games, and it's because they don't even want to pay voice actors for their anime. Like, why would they want to pay it for their video games too?
So,
So, I don't know.
just to give some context to that, Sean, who we cited earlier, who was the voice actor who had been quoted from Breath of the Wild, and he had been like Rivali and some of those other major characters.
Hmm.
He was asked what he was paid to play Shinki in Eden Zero, and he said he was paid a standard anime rate, which is $75 per hour prior to this year, and $125 per hour since. So,
Oh, I got you.
not a great rate.
Yeah. Especially for like big performances for people who are, I don't know, they're a part of people's lives and their
Mm-hmm.
experiences
Well,
and like a
yeah,
big
and like
part of the culture
And when
too.
you
So
compare what they're
as
paid to what act like a quote unquote regular actor is paid, it's ridiculous.
screen
Like
actor,
yeah, and
right?
yeah,
it's
it's
not fair.
mental.
It's
Yeah.
not fair, right? Like I think no matter
Well,
how you slice it, voice actors are underpaid.
yeah. I mean, that was one of the things Helena called out in her videos. I think was that it's just people in this industry aren't paid enough, and I think she said that she couldn't even afford to run a car. Like she was like, I'm not worried about breaking the NDA. What are they going to come after me for? I can't even afford to run a car. I've got nothing, is what she said. And I was just like, there's a really sad situation to be in because I can imagine this line of work as well really depends on you getting the gig, Otherwise, you're bouncing in between work. So maybe what might seem like a high figure, it might be your only job for the year. So you kind of
Yeah.
have to do it. It's like the feast or famine kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one
And
thing that people don't take into account with like acting in general. It's like unless you're working a series that gets picked up for several seasons, like you're looking for a job in a few months, basically.
well,
Like
and
every
I
few
think
months is the
this
job
is
search.
something that is a frustrating trend, right? Where like you have this attitude of like, oh, like isn't that enough, right? And it's like, no, it's not. Like that's not a livable wage. And do you want to have a scenario where the only people who can be voice actors are people with rich parents? Because that's what you're asking for,
That's what
right?
you're gonna get. You're gonna get a lot of trust fund babies who can barely do a Pikachu voice. Like,
And it's like, right? Like the the work should go to the person who's the best, not the person who can afford the lifestyle, you know?
right.
And I think it's particularly egregious, and this was my initial response, Steve, right? Is that I wasn't surprised by this because I know voice actors are underpaid, and we have examples of studios going with non-union voice actors who were cheaper because they don't want to spend what a voice actor who's established is worth. We have multiple stories, right? Even in just the last couple of years of characters who are iconic video game characters who have been voiced by one person for like their entire career, and then they bring somebody else in and don't tell them, right? Like we had that with with Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid 5. We had that with Kratos and God of War. Voice actors are often treated as expendable. regardless of how long they've had the gig or how established they are. We had that same problem, with the original Sonic voice actor, right? Where like he got replaced kind of out of nowhere and fans petitioned to bring him back, and they're like, oh, too bad, right? Just you're expendable. We don't care about you. Sonic is what sells. You're not what sells. And that's what this feels like here, right? Is that, or at least that was my thought initially, as we will discuss in a second. The story does go a bit deeper, but it's that she wanted to get what she thought she was owed, which I think is fair, right? For being the lead character.
And you mentioned like livable wage. That is what she said she asked for. Mm-hmm. She said she didn't ask for the world. She was asked for a decent and dignified living wage was what she asked for.
Which is reasonable. That's a reasonable request. And I think for somebody to be the lead voice, like the lead character, voicing the lead character in a extremely successful franchise, and extremely, I guess, your mileage may vary on how big you think Bayonetta is, but Bayonetta has made hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So obviously they have enough money to pay the star of the game a little bit more money, or offer her some kind of residual or some kind of cut for creating a character, or at least creating a really significant portion of that character, right? The voice, the identity of Bayonetta, especially when you think about the fact that a big part of Bayonetta's appeal as a character is sex appeal, and that she is this, like sex symbol, and her voice is a big part of that, and that's something that like she's not seeing a dime when they make a Bayonetta amiibo, or, when they sell, Bayonetta merch and all that stuff, right? Like
what about when she goes into Smash? Did she get anything for that? I doubt it.
She probably got paid to do the voiceover for that one day, maybe, or they just used her lines from other games. And
probably just used the lines from the other game, yeah.
Right. So it's like, I think it makes me legit sick how people will do mental gymnastics to argue that artists don't deserve money and then spend all their free time consuming art. Shitty way to be. So, let's talk about what dropped today. Earlier today, literally while we were putting the show together, thank you for not fucking us on this one, Jason, because Valve pays me no such love, or Nintendo for that matter. But Jason Schreier dropped a big old report over here at that there Bloomberg, talking about kind of the story behind the story. And there's quite a few new details that have come out. So before we get into it, I will also say that this has been corroborated by Steven Totillo at Axios Gaming and Andy Robinson at Video Games Chronicle. So you could probably take this one to the bank. We have multiple established journalists corroborating the story. But this is what we have. So Jason has said he's spoken with two sources that are familiar with what's gone on. He's seen documentation relating to the negotiations of this back and forth between Hellena and Platinum Games. So this is the additional context that we were missing. Hellena was allegedly offered between 3 and 4K per session for at least 5 sessions. So if you think about it in that way, rather than like the 4,000 that's being quoted, it's as the source Jason Steele that Steve mentioned earlier, this could just be a misinterpretation in that she was being offered that per session, which would come out
I mean, if that was the case, she should have corrected it, right? Because she did 3 videos. She could have done a part 4 and been like, oh, it looks like some of you getting the wrong end of the stick. I was actually offered a total of X. It would have been X per session.
Especially considering she also responded to Bloomberg's story. So she obviously was willing to respond, right? So obviously she could have went and made that clarification. So take that as you will. So again, right? That's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20K, not 4K. So keep that in mind. This is allegedly, quote unquote, significantly more than she was paid for her work on Bayonetta 2, which is woof. That's rough. But okay. And sources are claiming that Taylor asked for a 6-figure fee and residuals on the game. And then Platinum later offered her a cameo in the game for the fee of 1 session, which she turned down. So a couple pieces of important context there. There are also a couple other little updates here that Jason made on Twitter that I do want to add. He said Taylor denies this account in an email to Bloomberg. She called that version of events a quote-unquote absolute lie and said that Platinum is quote-unquote trying to save their ass and the game. So you're muted, Steve.
She actually continued in Jason's article. After that, she said, I would like to put this whole bloody franchise behind me, quite frankly. Get on with my life in the theater. I think she's probably done with video games for the time being.
What an actor thing to say. I don't mean
That's
that with
the most
shade, but like,
British line as well. It's
I'm
like,
so
"Oh,
ready to
bloody
put this
franchise."
bloody series behind me and return to the theater. Like a true actor. I love it. So, now that we have this context, does anyone feel differently?
No, not really. I still don't think $15,000 for the voice actors work for an entire video game.
You're
the third in the
god
franchise
damn
is
right.
enough. I wish if it was the case, she'd have clarified it. I think if she'd have said I only got 15K, it would have been. I still would have been like, "Wow, this is nowhere near enough."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people still would have been appalled by that. It would have been good to tell the whole truth there, but I think having wider conversations like this overall, like there's a benefit to this. Like other voice actors came out and revealed their pay for their roles that they've done, and things like that can bring awareness to the issue and put it in the public eye, I think.
We definitely should not allow it to be legal, and I would imagine the union will negotiate something similar, that you can just hide this behind a non-disclosure agreement, so you're never ever allowed to talk about what you've earned. Like that's preposterous.
I think as like society, we need to kind of reevaluate what is okay to put behind a non-disclosure agreement, because I saw a lot of people like talking about that on Twitter and being like, NDAs shouldn't exist. They only exist to like bully people and blah blah blah. And like,
I don't agree with that.
No.
I think NDAs should exist to some extent.
because there's a line, right? Because there are things like you wouldn't like if you had a business that ran out of your house, you wouldn't want somebody who left the job to tell people where you live, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily want someone to communicate like, you know, what bank your business uses or things like that, right? There's plenty of things that proprietary technology, right, that it makes sense to have behind an NDA.
Or even like a video game. Like look at what happened with GTA 6. If like they're posting that footage online all the time, and people that get the impression that that's what the game's going to look like when it's finished, because clearly people don't know how video games will work and don't know that that was nowhere near the finished state or whatever. You could end up with situations where the valuation of your company for some arbitrary reason is pushed down by the market reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that, like I totally agree that, you know, NDAs have their place, but I don't think it's fair for you to like lock this type of thing because it's anti-worker, right? Like workers should be able to discuss what they make. Workers should be able to have like, you know, how else do you know if you're being paid a fair wage?
Right. That pay transparency is crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like, go ahead.
I was gonna say the residuals thing is so gray and murky because like, she didn't write like anything like that's like I guess like royalties or something you get in music when you like you write a song, like you're paid every time it's performed. But you can also get like a performance royalty. So I feel like that's like territory that
it's
no
pretty
really
common on TV.
Yeah.
I remember like the Friends people, the Friends cast negotiated it, right, for some of their final seasons, and ended up getting like a cut of all of it whenever it went to another like another network.
And like that extends to things like when you make like a streaming deal, usually, you know, things like that. So I've got, this comes from bigmouthaudio.com. So, you know, this is their explanation. for the question, what are SAG residuals? It's actually quite simple. Residuals are a compensation paid to your voice actors for use of their performance in a theatrical motion picture, film, or television show beyond the use covered by initial compensation, their session fee. In TV animation, the initial compensation covers only the first broadcast of the actor's performance, as well as their time on the day of recording. Residuals begin once the show starts re-airing or is released to DVD, pay television, broadcast TV, basic cable, or new media such as Netflix, Amazon, etc. For theatrical films, the initial compensation will cover its cinema run, and then residuals would be due once the film moves to DVD, television, new media, etc. So
I guess like a port to say they released this is on Switch at the moment. Maybe they brought it to PC later, or they did a re-release because they obviously re-released Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2.
right, so
on
like she
Switch.
wouldn't have
If
been
she'd
paid
had
for
a
that,
residuals,
even though
yeah.
all
Whereas
of her audio was being used to profitize and sell another
Exactly.
game.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have seen a penny for that.
she
That's
got
bullshit.
paid
Yeah, that's
like
bullshit.
15 grand, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, so she got
Yeah,
paid
I don't know.
15 grand. What? How long ago? In 2013 or something? When did that game
Yeah.
come out?
And I
Right.
guess they can use the audio because if they've got the raw audio, they could use it in something like Smash, or they could go,
That's
you know
right.
what, we're going to use a lot of this and make Bayonetta 3, and we'll just get someone to fill in the gaps in the bits that we don't have, which is probably what they've done with.
I'm
with
not sure how
Jennifer
that
Hale.
works, but either way, right? There is a clear law, like rule set for how residuals work in literally every other medium for voice acting, and it's insane that it just doesn't work that way in video games. Because why, right? Like games continue to sell. You know, it's
Yeah.
like that's just not fair, and because
the
there's not a
persona.
precedent.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, her persona sells the game. Like it's part of the reason why they profit so much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I don't think you can argue otherwise, right? Like, it's not like she plays some supporting character. This is the character on the box. It's the name of the game. Like, that should be worth something, you know? And I think acting like
It
it's
is 15 grand apparently.
That's it.
like that sucks. You know, like that really sucks. And I would be interested to, I wish that some other voice actors who had played long running characters would come out and talk about this even more, because like I do wonder like what, like you know it's a great example, right, of like spoilers, light spoilers, I won't say why, but we'll say this, one of the main characters, right, from The Last of Us has a very minor role in The Last of Us Part 2. What was the pay scale for that like? Did they honor the fact that this was a person returning to voice that character that had launched the franchise, and you know, and they look at them as like a collaborator and somebody that they respect and want to take care of? Or did they try to pay them the absolute minimum that they could pay?
Right.
You know, and it's
That's
like
why
we see Nintendo do this left and right. This is not the first time that they have undervalued voice actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Asobi in the Discord who shared when this was doing the rounds. It was like it was a story from a good number of years ago, talking about one of the voice actors from GTA 4, I think it was, or maybe GTA 5, who got paid $100,000 for his performance, and still didn't think it was enough based on how much that game and that franchise made. Because there's no residuals to it. It's like in Rockstar's case, it's a salary that they pay you, and they hire you for a fixed period of time. It was 15 months. He got paid $100,000 for, but no other royalties beyond that, and that's the most successful video game in history.
that is
I
so
like-
funny.
I
Sorry,
like to
Chu,
do
go
the
ahead.
math on these types of things where I'm like, I wonder how many copies of Bayonetta is 15 grand. And it's 250 copies of that game.
Like,
Not
that's
a lot,
insulting. That's insulting.
And I'm like, this game sold 2 million. The first one sold over 2 million copies. I just looked that up real quick, and I'm like, well, that's.
And I
not a
imagine it's
lot.
going to sell way more. Now it's getting had a
Yeah.
digital re-release, and now it's getting a boxed re-release on Nintendo Switch.
Switch is also a more popular console, right? Like when Bayonetta 2 came out on Wii U, like, what are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
Nobody
So now
was
this is
gonna
like
buy
a
that.
highly anticipated game. Everyone's been waiting for it for years.
people know the character because she was in Smash 2. Like, that helps.
Yeah. reducing like a role like a voice actor to an hourly wage is so funny. Like you walk in and it's like you're doing a little marketing job and then you leave for the day and you forget about it. Like, no, you are voicing an iconic character who's who, you know, with like a legacy that will outlive you when you're gone. Like, people will look back and remember Bayonetta. Like, that's not like a fucking office job. It's
No.
not.
And
Nobody will
Helena was
remember
saying, you know, she did 7 years of training. She put time and effort into crafting that character and coming up with it, and like
Right.
getting in the mindset of her. And it's not, and she doesn't feel it's fair for someone to come along and mimic that and take credit for it, which is why she said that, you know, Jennifer Hale had no right saying she is Bayonetta. And I don't think Jennifer would ever. Anyway.
No, that was another
Yeah.
thing that did rub me the wrong way. Is I did not appreciate the way that she kind of like took a swipe at Jennifer, like she was like a scab or something, right? Where it's like, come
I
on.
didn't call her out. She didn't name her, and she did specifically say, "Don't go give her abuse. She's just doing her job." So
Yeah.
I don't think it was like she was aiming for her. It very much seemed to be targeted at Platinum and Nintendo, because she like tagged Nintendo
That's
Japan
true.
and stuff in there.
I love that energy.
Yeah, she was like calling them fat cats and stuff in the videos, which I thought was fun.
She's not
Take it
wrong.
out.
She's not wrong.
Take it out on the publisher, the like maybe even like the definitely. I don't know. Hideki seems like an asshole, so. That's
Oh,
His
yeah.
Twitter's back
but-
now, by the way.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a jerk. But
not Hale, not Jennifer Hale.
and this was a tweet I actually saw a while ago. Kitty Kong Facts on Twitter is a Twitter user I follow. Very funny. And they tweeted, Fire Emblem has a habit of replacing union voice actors with non-union voice actors. Charles Martinet wasn't considered for the Mario movie. Hellena Taylor was replaced as Bayonetta because she wanted a decent pay. Beginning to think Nintendo doesn't care about voice actors.
Yeah.
Fair to
like,
say.
Yeah, because I know it's not like Nintendo's developing the game. I saw like someone trying to make a point of that.
Yeah.
But
They're
they-
publishing
they-
it.
they could do so much. They're like the fucking bank giving them the money to develop this game and sell it.
How do they deal personally with voice actors though? Because Charles Martinet, I would imagine, is a fairly wealthy man for having played Mario for most
You
of his
think?
life.
I don't.
He
Wealthy?
strikes me as like a really nice colonial house in Vermont homeowner kind
you
of
think
guy.
so?
And not
I-
like a nice McMansion.
I think he's probably sitting on some millions. That would be my guess.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but it's like, how many? Because he's been playing that character for like the entire time I've been alive. So
Yeah.
that's not,
Yeah,
you know.
fair enough. Yeah.
And again, right? Like, who is that? He's playing the most iconic character in video
Yes.
games, and he's the only voice of the character.
Yeah.
So-
Well, not for much longer. You know, Chris Pratt's gonna come take over soon. So
No,
It's true.
Oh my god, it's me.
over my dead body or the
Wait.
real Chris Pratt's dead body.
you think they're paying him $4,000 a session though? I bet they're not.
Chris Pratt? No.
Pratt?
No, Chris. Yeah, Chris and Charles Martinet. I don't think
No.
he's getting paid that.
Yeah, he's making more
God,
than that.
no.
That's the point. Is like they're
know.
definitely able to pay more. If they thought that she was like a person that had power, they would pay her more. You know? I think that's just I think that's just how it is. Like I really have a hard time thinking that Troy Baker is making $4,000 a session.
No, he's not. Yeah,
Right?
There's no way. Yeah, I would imagine they also end up with like residual stuff because they were there promoting part 1 of The Last of Us as well, right? The
Yeah,
re-release of
on
that.
and the TV show too.
Yeah, they're not going to be there if they got paid a buyout and you know it was one-time fee.
Mhm.
They'd be like, fuck off. You going to pay me for it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you know, as much as I think Helena probably wasn't totally honest here, and I'm certainly not gonna try to sweep that aside. Like, I think she definitely misrepresented some information, and whether that was intentional or not, she could have clarified and chose not to. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But I still think she's in the right. I think she deserved more money. I think most voice actors are grossly underpaid, and I don't think it's wrong for her to ask for a livable wage and residuals for a major role in a major game for a character that she, I think you can't argue that she didn't play a role in the character's creation, because
she did. Yeah.
I think if you ask anybody, right, like when somebody acts a character, the actor is just as much responsible for creating and crafting a character as the person that wrote the dialogue.
Did you all ever
If not more.
see? There was an interview with Danny Putty, who plays Abed in Community. That's probably his most known role.
Ah.
But he was on what was it?
DuckTales.
One of those late night shows.
Oh.
Yeah, he was on DuckTales.
It was
but he
Larry King, because he's like, Larry, I'm on
yeah.
DuckTales.
Yeah, basically Larry King asks him, like, what's a luxury you can't live without? And I think Danny Putty said, like,
He said
comfy
socks, I think. Yeah, he's like, I
comfy
like a nice
socks
pair
or
of
something.
socks.
And Larry responds, he's like, what about like a private helicopter or something? And Danny Putty just is like, I'm on DuckTales. I don't make that money. That's not the kind of money I make for these things.
I really loved the exact quote as he goes, Larry, I'm on DuckTales. And that's it.
There's such a colossal disconnect between what people think entertainers make and what they actually make. Same goes for artists, like touring musicians, like the pay disparity between like regular everyday like working artists and then like higher echelon like celebrities, A-lister performers is so huge.
Well, to go back to a thing I said earlier, right? I think that an uncomfortable truth that a lot of people don't know is that many of the people that who have like quote unquote made it have rich or famous parents, or both.
That part.
And
see that
and it's still hard to make it, right? It's still hard to quote unquote make it as an actor, as whatever, even if you have connections, even if you have rich parents to subsidize your lifestyle. So it's just like, I can't tell you how many well-known writers people don't know are supported by their spouse or by family money.
Oh yeah.
And
I'll
how
leave it at
many things that are written are just written by ghostwriters too.
Yeah.
And they're not
I
allowed
love
to
that
tell.
bit that's like if you're like a super well-off musician, I don't want to hear anything you have to say if your parents' names are in blue on your Wikipedia page.
One of the funniest things I heard, my partner, she does poetry. She's got a PhD in that and everything, and so I'm very in the know of a lot of this world, right? And I remember one of our friends got paid for a poem or something, and his comment about it was like, "Yep, it's my 4-digit salary."
Yeah.
We
Very
live in
sad, isn't it?
cursed society.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I've got like one question to ask you. Do you think this is going to have an effect on the sales of the game? Because that video's had 9.5 million views. The Bloomberg article's behind a paywall, and it's not going to do the rounds and go viral as much as those video series where it looks like she's almost in tears. And a lot of people cancelled their pre-orders. And whether they choose to go and reorder them or not, like maybe some people forgot they'd ordered the game and went to go check and cancelled it. Because there's a lot of other games coming out. You know, we've just had Mario Rabbids that Chuy reviewed. We've got Persona 5 coming out. There's a lot of stuff crowding this space at the moment. And Pokemon, yeah. Do you think it's going to have an effect on the sales of the game?
Will it have a effect? Yeah. Will it have a significant effect? Probably not, if I'm honest. I think there are a lot of people who saw that video that were never going to buy Bayonetta, and I think there are a lot of people who will not have, like, who are not extremely online who will not have heard that this even happened, that this won't impact. And I think there's a great number of people that will not care because they either don't care about voice actors, or now that you can spin it and say, oh, she lied, she's full of shit, whatever, fuck. Like, there will be people who will justify that this is an okay thing for them to do morally. I think there are plenty of examples that you can point to in recent memory of franchises or creators or artists or whatever who are problematic or do something shitty or whatever, and it doesn't impact their bottom line as much as you'd hope. So, I don't know. I don't think the audience for Bayonetta is small enough for this to make a huge dent, but I guess we'll see.
I agree with you, Pete. I agree with you. Yeah. It's not like they're an indie, right? Like they're just, it's just not, the bad publicity is not going to make a deep enough impact to where they will reflect on their actions and course correct for the future.
I doubt it.
I think we're just gonna see what happens, but I don't think it's gonna bomb. Will it do amazingly? That is yet to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Not when you've got Kimmy tweeting like he does. I don't think he's got any kind of humility whatsoever.
But it's also like a he said she said thing, right? Where it's like the exact truth of the matter is not completely clear. So there are a lot of people who will be like, doesn't matter.
Well, show us the receipts then. Like, if Platinum's in the right, just like come out and just show us.
Yeah,
I know, right? They're being precious about it.
Like, it's their NDA. They can
Yeah.
just end it.
Yeah.
and they also got caught in a lie, so maybe that's why they don't want to. Not a cut and dry one. Chuy, you want the last word, or are you good?
No, I think you all said it. I'd say the same stuff, honestly.
Alrighty. So, if you want to weigh in and let us know what you think about the story, do you believe what's going on here? Do you have plans to pick up the game, or did you cancel a pre-order? I'm interested to hear some takes on this from some hardcore Bayonetta fans, because I am very much looking at this removed from a connection to the franchise. And I imagine if I was a big Bayonetta fan, I might feel a little bit differently. So I would love to hear some opinions from folks who are invested in that way. So if you want to write in, remember flipscreen.games. That's the website. You'll find links to our email address, to our Discord, to all the places you can catch us online, all the places we're making content, all the places you can get in touch. Flipscreen.games. Go hit us up however you choose to show your support. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. And for the crew, I've been Pete. She's been Sierra. He's been Steve. He's been Chuy. We'll see you next week. Oh, wait. I didn't do the thing. Hold on. Wait. Okay, so I got a thing now where the music plays while we're doing the outro. So I'm just going to click it again, okay? All right, hold on. Okay. So, for the crew, I've been Pete. She's been Sierra. He's been Steve. He's been Chuy. And don't you bring another fucking sandwich to my show, everybody, all right? I'm going to see you next week, baby.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, a hot dog is not a sandwich! Unbelievable!
I love it.